The protein bar tasted like cardboard mixed with chemicals, but Daniel Reed ate it slowly anyway. He sat on a worn metal bench in the trading post public rest area, watching aliens of a dozen different species hurry past without looking at him. 3 months ago, he'd been a mechanic with steady work and a future. Now, he was counting down to his last few hours before starvation. The trading post had seen better days. Half the shops stood empty with broken signs hanging crooked. The air recyclers made a grinding noise that never stopped. Most traders avoided this place now, which meant no work for people like Daniel. He tried everything. Nobody wanted to hire a human. Too fragile, they said. Too weak for real labor. Daniel broke off another piece of the protein bar and chewed it carefully. This was it. His last meal. After this, he had nothing. No credits, no food, no way off this dying station. He'd already sold everything he owned except the clothes he wore and his basic toolkit. Even that wouldn't fetch enough for another meal. A crashing sound made him look up. Near the waste disposal units, something large had collapsed against the wall. Daniel squinted through the dim lighting. It looked like a person, but bigger than most species he'd seen. The figure tried to stand but fell again. Daniel should have stayed on his bench. Smart people minded their own business on stations like this. But his feet were already moving before his brain caught up. He crossed the rest area and got a better look at what had fallen. She was a dragon. At least, that's what his mind called her. Scales covered her body in patterns of deep blue and silver. Wings folded against her back, torn and ragged. Her face had features that were almost human, but sharper, more angular. She was clearly female from her build and face. Right now, she looked half dead. "Hey," Daniel said softly. "You okay?" The dragon woman's eyes opened. They were gold and fierce even through the exhaustion. She said something in a language Daniel didn't know, then switched to broken standard. "Go away, human. Cannot pay you for help." "I'm not asking for payment," Daniel said. He knelt beside her and saw how badly she was shaking. Her scales looked dull and dry. "When did you last eat?" "5 days. Maybe 6. Her voice cracked. "Ship crashed. Walked here. No credit serviv." Daniel looked at the protein bar in his hand. His last food. The thing standing between him and starvation. He'd been so careful with it, trying to make it last. But this dragon woman was dying right in front of him. The smart choice was obvious. Keep the food. Survive one more day. Maybe find work tomorrow. Let the dragon woman be someone else's problem. Daniel held out the protein bar. "Here, take it." The gold eyes widened. "That is your food. I can smell you are hungry too." "Yeah, well, you're hungrier." Daniel broke the bar in half and offered the larger piece. "And there's water too. It's not much, but it'll help." "Why?" The dragon woman stared at him like he'd grown a second head. "Humans are supposed to be selfish. Weak. Cowardly. Probably are, mostly," Daniel admitted. "But my mom raised me better than to watch someone starve when I can help. Come on, take it before I change my mind." The dragon woman reached out with a shaking hand. Her claws were filed down, but still sharp. She took the protein bar piece carefully, as if afraid it might vanish. Then she ate it in 3 quick bites. Daniel handed her his water container, and she drank half before forcing herself to stop. "You should finish it," Daniel said. "I can get more water from the public taps." She drank the rest. Some color was already returning to her scales. She could sit up straighter now. This was her last food. "I can smell it on you. The hunger. Don't worry about it." Daniel sat back against the wall beside her. His stomach growled in protest at giving away the food, but he ignored it. "I am Sarah," the dragon woman said after a long moment. "From a draconid sovereignty. I cannot repay this debt. I have nothing left." Daniel Reed. "Human, obviously, and I don't want repayment. Sometimes people just need help, you know." Sarah studied him with those intense gold eyes. "Your species confuses me. You are dying yourself, yet you give your last food to a stranger. This makes no sense." "Makes perfect sense to me," Daniel said. "You needed it more." They sat in silence for a while. The station's recyclers ground on. Other aliens passed by, ignoring both of them. Sarah's breathing became steadier as the food and water took effect. Finally, she pushed herself to her feet. She swayed but stayed upright. "What is your station number?" Sarah asked. "Your residence?" Shop 47 in the lower mechanics sector, Daniel said. Not that it matters much. Getting evicted in 2 days, anyway. Sera noted slowly. I will remember this, Daniel read. Your kindness when you had no reason to be kind. Your generosity when you had nothing to give. She spread her torn wings slightly in what might have been a formal gesture. I swear on my clan's fire, this debt will not be forgotten. Sure, Daniel said, too tired and hungry to really process the formal tone. Just take care of yourself, okay? Sarah left without another word, walking unsteadily toward the docking bays. Daniel watched her go, then looked at his empty hands. No food, no water, no plan for tomorrow. But somehow, he didn't regret it. He stood up and headed back to his shop, trying not to think about how his stomach felt like it was eating itself. At least he'd helped someone today. That had to count for something, even if it meant he might not survive the week. 8 days passed like a slow death. Daniel's stomach had stopped growling after the 3rd day, and now just ached with a deep, constant pain. He learned that hunger came in waves. Sometimes he could almost forget about it. Other times, the weakness hit so hard he had to sit down before he fell. The repair shop had become his prison. Daniel slept on the floor because he'd sold his cot 5 weeks ago. His tools sat on the workbench, clean and organized because there was no work to use them for. The few customers who still came to this section of the station walked past his shop without looking inside. Humans had a reputation for shoddy work. Never mind that Daniel had been fixing ships since he was 15. On day 4 without food, he tried to find work at the loading docks. The foreman, a 6-armed Hectarian, had laughed in his face. We need workers who can lift heavy cargo, not fragile little humans who break if you look at them wrong. Daniel had left before the anger could override his common sense. Starting a fight would just get him thrown in detention or worse. Day 6 brought a small miracle. An elderly Quilarian engineer named Moth needed his personal data pad repaired. The screen had cracked and the memory core was corrupted. Daniel fixed it in 20 minutes, recovering all the old files. Moth paid him with half a ration pack and a bottle of water. Daniel ate it so fast he made himself sick, but at least he had something in his stomach. You do good work, Moth said in his wheezing voice. The Quilarian's feathers were gray with age, and several of his 3 eyes had gone cloudy. Better than most mechanics on this station. Thank you, Daniel managed between careful bites of the ration bar. Why are you here? Moth asked. Young human with skills should not be starving on a dying station. Daniel explained about the transport company going bankrupt, how they'd abandoned him here with no way home and no severance pay, how Earth was too far and too expensive to reach on his own. I've been trying to save enough for passage on a colony ship. Any colony, I don't care where. But I can't even afford food anymore. Moth clicked his beak sadly. This station is cursed. Management is corrupt. They take bribes and let criminals operate freely. Good people suffer while the station master grows rich. Seems like the way things work everywhere, Daniel said. Over the next 2 days, a few other desperate souls found their way to Daniel's shop. A broken translator, a faulty environmental suit regulator, a child's toy that had stopped working. Daniel fixed them all in exchange for scraps of food or small favors. It wasn't much, but it kept him alive. Barely, on day 8, everything changed. Daniel was trying to sleep despite the hunger when alarms started blaring throughout the station. Emergency lighting kicked on, bathing everything in red. He dragged himself to his feet and checked the public information terminal outside his shop. A massive ship had just entered the station's docking range. The display showed a vessel 3 times larger than anything that normally visited this sector. The design was unfamiliar to Daniel, all sweeping curves and spikes, built from some dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Other residents were gathering in the corridors, talking in frightened voices. Daniel caught fragments of conversation. That's a Draconid ship. What are they doing here? The sovereignty never comes to this sector. Maybe they're here to shut down the station. I heard rumors about pirate activity. Daniel's chest tightened. Draconid. Like Sarah, he wondered if she was on that ship, or if this was just a coincidence. Probably a coincidence. She'd seemed important, but not important enough to bring a warship to an hour later. Daniel received a message on his personal comm unit. Official Draconid Sovereignty Seal. His hands shook as he opened it. Daniel Reed, Human Mechanic, Shop 47. You are summoned to appear before the Draconid legal delegation aboard the vessel Flamecrest. Failure to comply will result in your immediate arrest and deportation. You have 1 hour to present yourself at Docking Bay 3. Daniel read the message 3 times, his heart hammering. Legal delegation? Arrest? What had he done wrong? Had he somehow offended Sarah by giving her food? Did Draconids consider charity an insult? He tried to think back over their conversation. He'd been respectful, hadn't he? Maybe his human ignorance had violated some cultural taboo. Maybe sharing food was forbidden between species. Maybe he doomed himself by trying to be kind. Moth found him 20 minutes later, staring at the message. I heard the announcement, the old Quilarian said. Draconids asking for you by name. What did you do? I helped someone, Daniel said numbly. A Draconid woman who was starving. I gave her my last food. Moth's 3 eyes widened. When was this? 8 days ago. And now their worship appears, asking for you specifically. Moth made a clicking sound. This is either very good or very bad. Draconids do not forget debts, but they also do not forget insults. I didn't mean to insult anyone, Daniel said. I was just trying to help. Then go to them with honesty, Moth advised. Draconids respect truth above all else. Whatever happens, do not lie to them. Daniel nodded. He cleaned himself up as best he could with recycled water and changed into his least worn shirt. His reflection in the polished metal wall showed a gaunt face with dark circles under the eyes. He looked like exactly what he was, a starving man at the end of his options. The walk to Docking Bay 3 felt like walking to his execution. Other station residents watched him go with mixed expressions of pity and curiosity. None of them offered help or encouragement. On a station like this, everyone was too busy surviving to care about anyone else. 2 Draconid guards waited at the Docking Bay entrance. They were even more impressive than Sarah, taller and broader, their scales gleaming like polished armor. They scanned Daniel with some kind of device, then gestured for him to follow. Daniel took a deep breath and stepped through the airlock into whatever fate waited for him on the other side. The inside of the Draconid ship made Daniel feel like an insect. Everything was built on a larger scale, from the corridors to the doorways. The walls were decorated with intricate carvings that seemed to move in the shifting light. The air smelled different too, carrying hints of smoke and spices he couldn't identify. The guards led him through a maze of passages until they reached a large conference room. The door opened with a hiss, and Daniel stepped inside. 3 Draconids waited for him, seated behind a curved table. They wore formal robes in deep crimson and gold, marked with symbols Daniel didn't recognize. Their faces were similar to Sarah's, but older, more severe. The one in the middle had scales so dark they were almost black, with streaks of silver running through them. Daniel Reed, the middle one said. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. Please sit. A chair had been placed in front of the table, sized for humans. Daniel sat carefully, very aware of how small he was compared to the 3 massive beings studying him. I am Advocate Cross, the dark-scale Draconid continued. These are advocates Lyra and Brennan. We represent the legal interests of the High Flame clan of the Draconid sovereignty. Do you understand why you are here? No, sir, Daniel said honestly. I helped someone 8 days ago. A Draconid woman named Sarah. But I don't know if I did something wrong or you did nothing wrong, Lyra interrupted. Her scales were deep green with copper highlights. Quite the opposite. But we must verify the facts before we proceed. Tell us exactly what happened during your encounter with Sarah High Flame. Daniel explained everything. Finding her collapsed, giving her his last food and water. Their brief conversation. He kept his answers simple and truthful, just like Moth had advised. The 3 advocates listened without interrupting. When Daniel finished, they exchanged glances that he couldn't interpret. You knew nothing about her identity? Brennan asked. His scales were rust red. She did not tell you her full name or clan affiliation. She just said her name was Sarah, from the Draconid sovereignty. That's all. Cross leaned forward. Daniel Reed, what we tell you now must be understood clearly. Sarah is not simply a Draconid citizen. She is Sarah High Flame, eldest daughter of Counselor Hrothgar Highflame, one of the 7 High Counselors who govern the sovereignty. She is heir to Clan Highflame, one of the oldest and most powerful clans in our society. Daniel felt his stomach drop. I didn't know. She didn't say anything about being important. She was traveling in secret, Lyra explained. Political rivals sabotaged her ship while she was on a diplomatic mission. She survived the crash, but was injured and stranded. It took her 6 days to reach this station on foot, across hostile terrain, with no supplies. By the time she arrived, she was dying. She told me she hadn't eaten in 5 or 6 days, Daniel said quietly. She was being generous, Cross said. It had been 7 days. Another 12 hours, and her body would have begun shutting down. You saved her life. I just gave her a protein bar, Daniel protested. Anyone would have done the same. Brenna made a sound that might have been laughter. No, Daniel Reed. Not anyone. Sarah spent 4 hours in that rest area before you found her. Dozens of beings passed by. None of them stopped to help. Many recognized her species and knew she was valuable. Some considered robbing her body when she died. The words hit Daniel like a punch. That's horrible. That is reality in places like this, Lyra said. You, however, chose differently. You gave her your last food, knowing it meant your own starvation. You asked for nothing in return. You expected no reward or recognition. Is this accurate? Yes, Daniel said. I mean, she needed help. I had food. It seemed like the obvious choice. The 3 advocates exchanged another look. This time, Daniel caught something in their expressions. Surprise, maybe, or respect. In Draconid culture, Cross began, there's an ancient law called the debt of final giving. It dates back thousands of years to when our people were scattered across clan territories and survival was uncertain. The law states that when someone shares their last resource with a starving Draconid noble, creating a situation where the giver may die so the receiver may live, an unbreakable bond of honor is formed. I don't understand, Daniel said. You gave Sarah your last food, Lyra explained. You had nothing else. By doing so, you place yourself in mortal danger to save her life. Under our oldest laws, this creates a debt that must be honored. Sarah is bound by this debt. Her clan is bound by this debt. The sovereignty itself recognizes this debt. Daniel's head spun. But I'm human. I'm not part of your culture. Surely that doesn't apply to me. That, Brennan said carefully, is precisely the problem we face. The debt of final giving has never involved an alien species before. Some members of our council argue that the law only applies between Draconids. They wish to dismiss the debt and compensate you with money instead. Others, including Counselor Highflame and his daughter, insist that honor knows no species boundary, Cross continued. They argue that the law must be upheld regardless of your origin. This has created a significant political situation. I don't want to cause problems, Daniel said quickly. If it's easier, just forget about it. No. All 3 advocates said simultaneously. Lyra leaned forward. Daniel Reed, you must understand something. Sarah was not merely starving when you found her. She had lost hope. She believed she would die alone and forgotten on that station. She was ready to accept death. Your act of kindness, your willingness to sacrifice yourself for a stranger, reminded her why the old laws exist. You gave her back her hope along with that protein bar. The High Flame clan will honor this debt, Cross declared. The question is not whether you will be compensated. The question is how, and that is why we are here. Daniel sat back in his chair, trying to process everything. A simple act of sharing food had somehow turned into an interstellar political crisis. What happens now, he asked. Advocate Cross pulled up a holographic display that floated above the table. It showed text in both Draconid script and standard language. What happens now depends partially on you. But first, you must understand what the High Flame clan is offering. Daniel nodded, still trying to wrap his mind around the situation. Under the debt of final giving, you are now considered clan adjacent, Lyra explained. This is a legal status that grants you certain rights and protections under Draconid law. You cannot be harmed by any Draconid citizen without severe consequences. You have the right to call upon High Flame resources in times of need. Your voice carries weight in certain legal matters. But there are responsibilities as well, Brennan added. You would be expected to uphold clan honor. Your actions reflect on the High Flame name. You would need to understand our customs and laws. This sounds complicated, Daniel said carefully. I'm just a mechanic. I don't know anything about politics or clan structure. Which brings us to the formal proposal, Cross said. He gestured to the holographic display. The High Flame clan offers you a position as cross-species technical liaison and engineering advisor. You would work directly with our technology division, helping to bridge the gap between human engineering methods and Draconid systems. Daniel blinked. I'm sorry, what? The Sovereignty has been struggling with certain technical challenges, Lyra explained. Your species approaches engineering differently than we do. Humans build with adaptability in mind. You create systems that can be repaired with minimal tools and resources. You find solutions using whatever materials are available. These are skills we lack. Draconid technology is powerful but rigid, Brennan continued. We build things to last forever, but when they break, they often cannot be fixed. We have studied human engineering philosophy and found it fascinating. Having a human advisor would be invaluable. Cross pulled up another screen. The position comes with full sovereignty citizenship. You would be given a residence on the Draconid homeworld in a district near the High Flame clan compound. Your salary would be 60,000 credits annually, plus housing and food allowances. You would have access to clan medical facilities and legal protection under High Flame authority. The numbers made Daniel dizzy. 60,000 credits was more money than he'd made in the last 5 years combined. This seems like too much. I just gave someone a protein bar. You gave someone hope when she had none, Lyra said firmly. You sacrificed your own survival for a stranger. In Draconid culture, such actions are treasured above gold or gems. The salary reflects the value we place on your character, not just your skills. There are challenges you should know about, Brennan warned. You would be the first human to hold such a position in the Sovereignty. Many Draconids still view your species as weak or inferior. Some see your presence as an insult to our traditions. You would face prejudice, political maneuvering, and constant scrutiny. Some clan members already oppose this arrangement, Cross admitted. They argue that a human cannot understand Draconid honor. They will test you, challenge you, and wait for you to fail. Life in the Sovereignty will not be easy. Daniel thought about the trading post, the starvation, the desperate struggle just to survive another day. He thought about Earth, so far away it might as well be in another galaxy. He thought about how other species looked at humans, the casual dismissal and contempt. Can I ask a question? Daniel said. Of course, Lyra replied. Why me specifically? I mean, there are human engineers with better education and more experience. Why not hire one of them? The three advocates looked at each other. Cross spoke first. Because you proved something rare. You proved that humans possess a quality more valuable than education or experience. You proved compassion without calculation. You acted with honor without knowing our laws. These things cannot be taught. The Sovereignty needs to see this, Lyra added. Too many species believe humans are only capable of selfishness and violence. You showed otherwise. Your presence would change minds and open doors. Plus, Sarah specifically requested you, Brennan said with something that might have been a smile. She believes you deserve this opportunity, and what Sarah Highflame believes tends to carry significant weight. Daniel rubbed his face with both hands. This is a lot to process. I went from starving to death to being offered a government position in about 8 days. We understand this is overwhelming, Cross said. You are not required to answer immediately. We can give you one standard day to consider. During that time, you will be provided quarters on this ship, food, and access to our information systems. You may research the Sovereignty, the High Flame clan, and verify everything we have told you. If you choose to decline, Lyra said, we will still honor the debt with compensation. Enough credits to return to Earth or settle anywhere in the galaxy. You will not be abandoned regardless of your choice. But we hope you will accept, Brennan added quietly. Not just for the clan's sake, but for your own. You have potential, Daniel read. Potential that is being wasted on a dying station where no one values you. Daniel stood up slowly. His legs felt shaky, whether from hunger or shock he couldn't tell. One day to decide. One day, Cross confirmed. We will have quarters prepared for you immediately. Food will be provided, along with access to communication systems. If you have questions during this time, any of us will make ourselves available. There is one more thing, Lyra said. She pulled up a final holographic screen. Sarah wished to send you a personal message. Would you like to view it now or in private? Private, please, Daniel said. He wasn't sure he could handle seeing Sarah right now, not with his emotions so tangled. The advocate stood, towering over him. Cross placed a clawed hand briefly on Daniel's shoulder, surprisingly gentle. Whatever you decide, know that your kindness has already changed lives. The rest is simply details. A guard appeared to escort Daniel to his quarters. As he followed through the ship's corridors, Daniel's mind raced. 24 hours to make a decision that would change everything. No pressure at all. The quarters they gave Daniel were nicer than anywhere he'd lived in the past decade. A real bed with clean sheets. A private bathroom with actual running water. A desk with a computer terminal that connected to the entire Draconid information network. And food. A tray sat waiting with 4 different dishes, more than he'd seen in months. Daniel ate slowly, forcing himself not to gorge after so many days of starvation. The food was strange, but good. Roasted meat in some kind of spicy sauce. Grain that tasted like rice, but with a nutty flavor. Vegetables he didn't recognize. A sweet drink that reminded him of fruit juice. After eating, he sat at the terminal and started researching. The Draconid sovereignty was massive, spanning 12 systems with a population in the billions. Their society was built around clan structures, with the 7 high clans holding most of the political power. The High Flame clan was listed as one of the oldest, with a history going back over 4,000 years. He found news articles about Sarah. Apparently, her disappearance had been major news in the sovereignty. Search parties had been looking for her for 2 weeks. Her rescue was being celebrated across Draconid space. Several articles mentioned a mysterious human who had saved her life, but no details were given. Daniel searched for information about human-Draconid relations. What he found wasn't encouraging. The 2 species had minimal contact. Most Draconids viewed humans as fragile and primitive. Trade between human and Draconid space was limited. There were no cultural exchange programs, no joint ventures, no diplomatic missions of significance. He was about to search for more when the computer chimed. A message waited for him. From Sarah. Daniel hesitated, then opened it. Sarah's face appeared on the screen. She looked completely different from the dying woman he'd met. Her scales gleamed with health. Her eyes were bright and alert. She wore formal robes similar to what the advocates had worn. Hello, Daniel. The recorded message began. I hope the advocates did not frighten you too badly. They mean well, but they can be intimidating. I wanted to speak with you directly to explain some things that politics and formality make difficult to say. Sarah paused, seeming to gather her thoughts. When you found me in that rest area, I had given up. I am ashamed to admit this, but it is true. I had survived the crash and the long walk, but somewhere along the way I lost hope. I decided to die in that place, alone, because it seemed easier than continuing to fight. Her voice grew softer. Then you appeared. A human, a species I had been taught was weak and selfish. You looked half-starved yourself. You had every reason to ignore me or to protect what little you had. But you didn't. You saw someone in need, and you helped without hesitation, without calculation, without asking what you would gain. Sarah's eyes seemed to look directly at Daniel through the screen. That protein bar saved my life, yes. But your kindness saved something more important. It reminded me why our old laws exist. Why the debt of final giving is sacred. Because in our darkest moments, it is compassion that makes the difference between survival and surrender. I know the position we are offering seems overwhelming, she continued. I know you are afraid of making the wrong choice. But I want you to know something. This is not charity. This is not us trying to ease our guilt. We genuinely need what you can offer. Your perspective, your skills, your approach to problems. And more than that, we need to see that honor exists beyond our own species. Cela smiled slightly. The sovereignty has become rigid in recent centuries. We're so proud of our traditions that we have forgotten how to adapt. We look down on species like yours because you are different, never considering that different might mean valuable. You have the chance to change that, not through grand gestures or politics, but simply by being yourself and showing what humans are capable of. I will not tell you what to choose, Sarah said. This decision must be yours alone. If you decline, I will understand, and you will still have my gratitude. But if you accept, I promise you will not face these challenges alone. The High Flame clan keeps its promises, and I will personally ensure you are treated with respect and given every opportunity to succeed. The message ended with Sarah placing her clawed hand over her heart in what seemed to be a formal gesture. Thank you again, Daniel Reed, for the food, for the hope, and for reminding me what real strength looks like. The screen went dark. Daniel sat back in his chair, emotions churning. He thought about Sarah's words, about the chance to change how an entire civilization viewed humanity, about having a real purpose instead of just struggling to survive. But he also thought about the challenges, the prejudice, the politics, the constant pressure of being the first human in a society that didn't trust his kind. Could he really handle that? Daniel spent the next few hours reading more about Draconic culture. He learned about their honor codes, their clan traditions, their complex social hierarchies. It was intimidating, but also fascinating. He found himself wanting to learn more, to understand these people better. Around midnight by the ship's clock, Daniel received another visitor. Advocate Lyra appeared at his door with a datapad. I apologize for the late hour. I thought you might want to see this before making your decision. She showed him a proposal, the fund he'd mentioned wanting to create for stranded travelers. The High Flame clan had already drafted the framework. They were willing to commit 2 million credits as starting capital. If you accept the position, this would be one of your first projects. You would help design and implement it. 2 million credits. Daniel stared at the numbers. The clan considers it a worthy investment, Lyra said. Sarah told us how you wanted to help others, even when facing your own destruction. We respect that impulse. After Lyra left, Daniel stood at the window of his quarters, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Home. But what did he really have there? No job waiting. No family left. Just memories of a planet that had forgotten him. Here, in this strange place among these massive dragon people, he had a chance to matter. To prove that humans were worth respecting. To help people who were struggling just like he had been. Daniel made his decision. Daniel found the 3 advocates in the same conference room the next morning. They looked up as he entered, their expressions neutral but attentive. I accept the position, Daniel said without preamble. But I have one condition. Cross tilted his head. Name it. The Fund for Stranded Travelers. I want it to be real, not just a gesture. I want to help set it up properly, make sure it reaches people who actually need it. People like I was a week ago. The 3 advocates exchanged glances. Then Lyra smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Done. We already have preliminary plans drawn up. You will have full authority to shape its implementation. Then I'm in, Daniel said. Whatever comes next, I'm ready. The change happened faster than Daniel expected. Within 3 hours, his citizenship paperwork was processed. The advocates provided him with formal draconid clothing that had been adjusted for his human size. They explained basic customs and protocols he would need to know. It was overwhelming, but Daniel absorbed everything like a sponge. Before he left the station, Daniel insisted on one final task. The advocates accompanied him back to the trading post, where he found Moth in his small shop. Daniel, the old Quilarian's eyes widened. You live. I fear the worst. I'm leaving the station, Daniel explained. But I wanted to thank you for your advice and for your kindness. He transferred credits to Moth's account, enough to get the elderly engineer off the station and set up somewhere better. You helped me when I had nothing. Now I can return the favor. Moth's feathers ruffled with emotion. This is too much. It's exactly right, Daniel said firmly. Use it well. He did the same for the other few people who had helped him during his desperate days. Small acts of generosity that felt right. The advocates watched without comment, but Daniel caught Lyra nodding in approval. The journey to the Draconid homeworld took 6 days. Sarah joined them after the second day, and she and Daniel spent hours talking. She told them about Draconid history and culture. He told her about Earth and human engineering philosophy. They discovered they had more in common than either expected. You think in terms of adaptation, Sarah observed during one conversation. When you see a problem, you ask how to work around it with what you have. And you think in terms of perfection, Daniel replied. When you see a problem, you ask how to solve it permanently. Neither approach is wrong, Sarah said thoughtfully. But together, they might be more effective than either alone. The homeworld stunned Daniel into silence when it came into view. Cities of gleaming towers built into mountainsides. Vast forests that seemed to burn with internal light. Oceans that reflected the system's twin suns. It was beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. Landing brought reality crashing back. A crowd waited at the spaceport. Some held signs welcoming Sarah home. Others held signs protesting Daniel's presence. He heard shouting in Draconid, none of it friendly. Ignore them, Sarah said quietly. They fear change. You will prove them wrong. The first weeks were brutal. Daniel attended meetings where half the attendees refused to speak to him directly. He gave presentations about human engineering methods to audiences who sneered at his suggestions. He worked with Draconid technicians who questioned his every decision. But slowly, things began to shift. Daniel solved the problem with a water reclamation system that had stumped Draconid engineers for months. His solution used basic principles and common materials, elegant in its simplicity. Word spread. More engineers started asking for his input, if reluctantly. The fund for stranded travelers launched 3 months after Daniel's arrival. It helped over 200 people in the first month alone. News coverage was extensive. The sovereignty citizens saw Daniel's face everywhere, always associated with helping the desperate and forgotten. It changed the conversation 0.6 months into his new life. Daniel stood with Sarah on a balcony overlooking the High Flame clan compound. The city stretched below them, lights beginning to glow as the sun set. Do you regret your choice? Sarah asked. Daniel considered the question. He thought about the challenges he still faced daily. The suspicious looks, the whispered insults, the constant pressure to prove himself. But he also thought about the young Draconid engineer who had thanked him yesterday for teaching her a new approach to solving problems. About the message he'd received from a family his fund had helped escape a dying station. About the slow but real change in how some Draconids viewed humans. No regrets, he said finally. This is hard, but it matters. I'm actually making a difference here. You are making more of a difference than you know, Sarah said. She pulled up a data display. 3 human engineering firms have opened trade negotiations with Draconid companies in the past month. 2 universities are discussing student exchange programs. The Sovereignties Council is considering establishing formal diplomatic relations with Earth. Daniel stared at the information. Because I gave you a protein bar? Because you showed compassion when you had nothing to gain? Sarah corrected. Because you proved that humans are more than the stereotypes we believed. One act of kindness, Daniel. One choice to help a stranger. That is what started all of this. I just did what felt right, Daniel said quietly. Exactement sera replied. And that is precisely why it mattered. They stood in comfortable silence as the city's lights grew brighter. Daniel thought about the journey that had brought him here. From a dying station and an empty stomach to this balcony, this moment, this new life. He thought about tomorrow's presentation to the council about expanded human-Draconid cooperation, about the challenges still ahead. But mostly, he thought about how strange and wonderful it was that one simple act of sharing could change so much. Not just his own life, but potentially the future of 2 entire civilizations. Somewhere in the city below, a human family was settling into their new home, helped by the fund Daniel had created. Somewhere in the engineering district, a Draconid technician was trying out a human design approach for the first time. Somewhere across the galaxy, people were beginning to see humans differently, all because of a protein bar and the choice to share it. Daniel smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to prove what humans could be. But tonight, standing here with a friend who had become like family, He simply felt grateful for the chance to show the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength was not weapons or technology. It was the willingness to give hope, even when you had almost none left to share.